Well, you've made it to the final project for Art 127 watercolor. So in this lecture, I'll talk about what your final project assignment criteria are, talk about the submission requirements, and how you'll need to do the peer review. It's a little bit different for the final. The assignment criteria, let's go through this in depth. Just so you know, I am showing you student work examples from previous classes on all of these slides. So the previous two slides, I'll just go back and tell you. This was Saw and Radishes, a student final project by Laura Lawrence. This was a student final project by Nadine Dunn. This was a student final project by Cheryl Doro. The assignment criteria: you must incorporate your semester theme, as in all other assignments. You must submit at least one painting, no smaller than 11 by 15 or 154 square inches, which, as you know, is a quarter sheet. If you decide to submit more than one painting, in case you want to do puddle painting on hot press or wet to dry on cold press, something like that, at least one of those paintings must meet the minimum size requirement, which is a quarter sheet. If you do more than one painting, the second or multiple paintings must be at least 80 square inches. So that 8 by 10 criteria, which works out to be about 1/8 of a sheet, 7.5 inches by 11 inches. You must use professional grade watercolor paper of any type or combination of types. So the ones we've talked about in the class are cold press, hot press, and rough. If you're going to submit more than one painting, you may use a combination of paper types. You don't have to do all cold press or all rough paper, etc. Each painting must have an established format or outer edge to the composition. Typically this will be your taped edge. You're going to title and sign all your submissions. You can do this in pencil if you want. You can put the title on the back if you want, but I need to see a picture of the title of your painting. And make sure you sign your work. Be proud. Each painting must include at least 3 figures, which are positive shapes or forms, like we talked about throughout the semester, and 2 ground elements. So those are the background elements. So if you look at Cheryl's painting over here, she has a sky, a cloud, and a couple of mountains. Those could be considered background elements. She has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flowers and buds and leaves. So she has more than satisfied the minimum of 3 figures or forms. Now remember, shape is flat. A form has volume, and you can tell it's 3-dimensional. So make sure you get your shading in there. There's more criteria. You must depict at least 3 levels of value. This is what we discussed in lesson 2. So if you see the painting at the right, he did a really nice job of getting the white, the halftone, the core shadow, and the cast shadow to depict that beautiful rose, and he used a kind of the wet and wet technique. So you must show an understanding of temperature bias and how it affects intensity. So if you compare the difference between this this orange and this orange, this one looks more intense because he's used the 2 warm primaries of yellow and red, whereas this one he used a cool red to get a more subdued or less intense orange. So that's how this person decided to show the temperature bias. Use at least 1 pigment each, transparent, semi-transparent, and opaque. Go back to your charts and determine which of your complemented pigments is rated as a transparent pigment and which ones have been rated as semi-transparent and which ones you rated as opaque. I'll give you a hint: the opaque pigments are your white pigments, unless you have other pigments that weren't required in the course. That comes from lesson 4 and 5, so you might want to review that. And the temperature lesson was lesson 3. So you have to include all the different techniques or methods that we have learned throughout the semester. So we started off way back with calligraphy strokes. So you want to show me some calligraphy strokes in this example. You can see there's a few calligraphy strokes back in here, and a flat wash, which he included in some of the petals, a graded or variegated wash, so he included a variegated wash in the background to keep it soft and indistinct, and wet into wet. He painted these background down here, wet into wet, and saving and lifting whites. So he saved the whites here, and he lifted back some whites back into this background. You also have to show me at least one texture method and material. Remember, that was lesson 6, where we had 4 different methods and 9 different materials that were auxiliary materials. So did you do some scratching? Do you want to do some salt? Do you want to do saran wrap? Whatever your favorite texture method was, make sure you use at least one method and one material. Then once you've satisfied all the assignment requirements, how do you submit? So you want to upload the images as all the other assignments as JPEG files. If you're submitting more than one painting, make sure you submit a unique image for each painting rather than trying to get several paintings into one image. And then I want you to type up how you've met all the assignment criteria. Please do this in the text box entry box like you did in lesson 7 for the field trip report. Please don't just upload a document file. I may not have access to a place to save those, and usually I can't read them unless I save them first. So if you do create it in an offline word processing program, please copy and paste that into the text entry box rather than uploading the file. Or you can do both if you want. I just might not have access to it if you just upload the document. And again, just a reminder, this should be from last assignment familiar to you, but in your image submissions, you want to be in the File Upload tab of your submission area, and you're going to choose your files. So remember where you saved your files, and you can add multiple files. I'll be able to see each one of those and click through them on the images. If you have some comments specific to an image, please type those in the comment area box. In the text submission, again, instead of being in this first tab, you need to click over to the second tab for the text entry box. Copy and paste if you've created your description in another word processing program. So that's just a picture of what it looks like. You can actually type right in there just as if it's a word processing program. So that might save you some time. Then you have to do a peer review. You've been doing peer reviews all along, but I'm going to require a little bit more this time, more specific comments. You're going to, again, evaluate 3 of your classmates, and you're going to have to do this within 12 hours of the assignment due date. So your assignment deadline is at midnight, so you need to do it by noon the next morning. Address at least these 3 points. Did the classmate that you're reviewing, did they meet all the assignment criteria in your opinion? What was the level of mastery achieved? You should be able to see their text as well. See what you think. I'd like to know your opinion on all this. Did they achieve a level of mastery? Would you still consider them a beginner? Or would you consider them an intermediate painter? Or would you consider them a master now? Did their work give you a sense of what their theme was? Do you think they followed their theme well? Was it obvious? And did they give you a good focal point? And how do you think they achieved that focal point? What methods and tricks did they use to get you to look where you wanted to look? And this is a student final project by Kimberly Waskey. All right, in summary then, we'll use Laura Lawrence's Saw and Radishes. I thought this was an incredible use of calligraphy stroke, trying to mimic the rice paper of the Chinese writing, using calligraphy strokes to mimic Chinese writing. That was very clever. And then she used splatter to try to get the effect of the rice paper. And then the saw, she did scratching and masking, and it's just a wonderful use of all the techniques that we went through. Anyway, you can now call yourself a watercolor artist. You might not be a master yet, but you're a watercolor artist. So thank you for a great term. I hope to see you again in the future. And will you enter the Spring Student Art Show? At the end of each spring semester, we typically organize a Spring Student Art Show. I'd love to see some of your work in there. Again, thank you so much for joining me for this class.